Good evening and welcome to Clumsy Persons Anonymous and... Ow! Fucking Christ. Sorry, I seem to have stuck my hand through a plate glass window. I must remember when addressing the group to keep my hands to my side. What's all that hullabaloo?
Sorry I'm late, Bertram. I would have been here earlier, but there was a bloody huge pile-up on the road outside. Yes, I caused it, but it took an age to get everyone's insurance. And then I fell upstairs, and then...
Yes, Nathaniel, we understand. Sit down.
Ow!
Right, get back up again. Carefully place your posterior back on the chair and sit still while I finish up introductions.
Oh, Jeff!
What is it now?
Oh, my bloody eye! You poked my cocking eye!
Right, sorry. If everyone, me included, could just stay perfectly still while I run introductions. Right. Lovely to see so many of you here tonight. A lot of you, I notice, are bandaged in various areas, and Cecile, I see, is missing an arm. You can share your story in a minute, Cecile. But first I wanted to introduce a newbie to the group. His name is Jeff Hamster Parcel, and if you'd like to stand and say a few words, Jeff. Thank you. Don't worry, Jeff. Dust it off and take your time.
Hello. My name is Jeff, and I'm a clumsaholic. I first realised I might be a clumsy person when I was in junior school, when I accidentally set fire to my English teacher's vagina with a Bunsen burner that had somehow become entangled in my thighs on the way out of science.
We've all been
My
there.
dad, I believe, was a clumsy, but of course he never acknowledged it. You didn't back then. The English just repressed it and got on with things, barely a day went past in our house growing up without him hitting his thumb, banging his head, cutting off a part of his ear, or accidentally killing several of our pets with a nail gun. Whenever I was clumsy in school, I would get bullied, and of course that only made me more nervous and more clumsy, like the time I ran over the headmaster's face accidentally with a wheelbarrow. Anyway, it's lovely to be here. I can't wait to hear everybody's stories, and I hope that by sharing I can start trying to walk down the street and not being embarrassed or ridiculed if I fall down a manhole or walk into a lamppost.
Sorry! And yes, well, that was dull, wasn't it? And we'll be taking you back there as soon as anything interesting happens. Maybe someone has sex with a sperm whale, the dead Bee Gees come back to life and hunt each other down with crossbows. Or maybe someone falls through a door and impales their pancreas with a highly polished, excessively sharpened statue of Phila Delore. However, now, while we wait, it's time for this week's After Movie Diner, which comes from the Bader Meinhof rooms in Sheen, where the talk is racy, the waiters are topless, and every second item on the menu is filled with teeth. Good morning, good day, good night, wherever you are. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the After Movie Diner. And have we got a special, spanking, exciting, highly polished episode for you today? Yes, indeed. We have got a Herschell Gordon Lewis extravaganza. We've got an interview with Herschell Gordon Lewis himself. We have an interview with his current producer, James Saito. And we have a top-class panel of people discussing his movie, The Gore Gore Girls, and other films. Myself, Jamie Jenkins, and Mo Porn. That's coming up all today on the After Movie Diner. You cannot believe your luck listening to this. This is the most jam-packed and the very best Herschell Gordon Lewis episode of a podcast you will ever hear anywhere, ever. But before we get to all that good stuff, just a moment to mention our patrons over at patreon.com. That's www.patreon.com/After Movie Diner. If you want to become a patron of the After Movie Diner, or if you want to become a pledger or a sponsor or whatever you want to call it, you can go over to patreon.com/After Movie Diner and pledge $1 or more per podcast show. That works out at around $3 to $4 a month if I manage to do a show every single week, sometimes 5 if it's a 5-week month, but I sincerely doubt it. Most of the time I manage to kind of bang out 3 to 4 episodes a month. So it's really nothing more you wouldn't find down the back of your sofa every week. So go ahead, pledge $1 or more per podcast show to the After Movie Diner over at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Every little would help. It'll help pay for the various URLs that I maintain. It'll help maintain the website and keep that going. It'll help maintain the show and keep that going. It'll help me and keep me going. So really, you've had 3 years where we've done the show completely for free and haven't asked for anything except the occasional sort of album or something that I'm promoting. But really, it's all about keeping it free. But if you wish to be a patron and if you wish to be a sponsor, go over to patreon.com/aftermoviediner and show us just how much we mean to you guys. That would be amazing if you did. We're really only talking $1 a week, 70p if you're in the UK. So it's really just pocket change. We're not being greedy. We're not being crazy. Just anything you can do to help would sincerely really mean an absolute ton to me and to the people on the show and to the listeners of the show, because it'll help keep the show going. Without the sponsorship, I'm not sure what the future is. So anything you can do to help us keep the website and everything, that would be absolutely fantastic. That is patreon.com. And two of the people who have done it to a particularly high amount and therefore get sponsor credits on the show, they get a full-blown "this show is sponsored by" is none other than the wonderful Philip O'Neill. Philip O'Neill, everybody needs a listener like you. And from Ritter's World himself, Mr. Jason Ritter. So this After Movie Diner episode is brought to you exclusively by Philip O'Neill and Jason Ritter. Can't thank them enough. But that is not all. We have had not one but 4 donations since we had our last show. And I would like to give a big shout out to Mike Murphy. Thank you ever so much for your pledge. To John Smith or John Smythe. I don't know how you pronounce that. It's got a Y in it, so it could be Smith, it could be Smythe. But John Smythe, thank you ever so much for a pledge of $1. Captain X Dave, thank you ever so much for your pledge. And Charlie Roxburgh, thank you ever so much for your pledge. That is 4 pledges in the last 10 days. That's absolutely fantastic. If we could maintain that kind of level from all the listeners, that would be incredible. So thank you ever so much, all who have donated up until this point. I called out a lot of names last time. Thank you ever so much to Philip and Jason. And now...
Commenting on the internet, they're commenting all over the internet and not all over my face.
Okay, and we've got some Herschell Gordon Lewis themed comments over on our Facebook group, which can be found over at Facebook.groups/groups/AMD, capital letters, and then AND as in and then capital letters again, DAATKAK. Now, if you don't remember that, and why would you? It's a ridiculously terrible, bad group URL that I really should have changed, but I don't think you can at this point. Please go over to aftermoviediner.com and click on the big ad for the Facebook group on the right-hand side and join our Facebook group. Have a conversation about movies with like-minded and very groovy individuals. Anyway, I asked this week, what is everyone's favorite Herschell Gordon Lewis movie? Josh Stewart says, I'm leaning towards The Gore Gore Girls, which is great news, as that's the film we're covering this week. Mark Burns says he's never seen any. So hopefully after this episode he rushes out and takes a look at some. James Cox says Wizard of Gore for sure. Gary Hill says Just for the Hell of It and Scum of the Earth. Not Gore, but my faves easily. Abby Denson says, I remember liking She-Devils on Wheels. It's been a while. And Matt Payne says, I still have to go with the Gore Gore Girls. Such a crazy, insane, fun film. And Jeffrey X. Martin says, it's a weird tie between Just for the Hell of It and Blood Feast. All right, well, thanks ever so much for your comments, guys. I'll ask another question next week, and let's keep the conversation going. Okay, and now, without further ado, the moment you've hopefully all been waiting for, it is my absolute undiluted pleasure to introduce into the booths of the After Movie Diner the fantastic, the funny, the interesting, the intelligent, and the awesome Herschell Gordon Lewis.
Hello, this is Herschel.
Yeah, hi there, Herschel. This is John Cross from the After Movie Diner. James said I'd be calling.
Oh, yes. Good morning, good morning.
Yes, good morning to you, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm having a fine day.
Excellent.
So far, the sun is still shining. What the heck?
Nice, lovely. Well, welcome to the After Movie Diner, and thanks for being on the show.
It is my pleasure to be on your show, John.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Herschel. Thank you. So I had just a few questions. Just wanted to go through a little bit about your career, and then we'll get on to BloodMania towards the end, if that's okay.
Whatever you call for, you will have from me, because what Jim says about you, I wish somebody would say about me at some point.
Well, there are plenty of, I think, internet forums and fans of your work that I know personally and things that say lots of complimentary things. So, and we'll be reviewing one of your films on the show as well. So we'll have lots of good stuff to say, I'm sure. Okay, so you started out in advertising and you shot some TV commercials. What was the transition to film like, and how did that initially come about?
Well, I don't want to tie up the entire program here. Actually, I started off as a school teacher, even before that.
Yeah.
Armed with any number of degrees, I felt the only civilized job was to teach school. So I taught English literature, and my specialty was of the 19th century, specializing in poetry such as Browning and Tennyson and people of that ilk. And I felt that would be my career forever, because it was an easy job. Robert Browning is not about to write any more poetry, so one set of lecture notes lasts a lifetime.
Yeah.
At the college at which I was teaching, they made me, as a way of moonlighting, I guess you'd call it, a director of broadcasting. And so I would travel around with a College of the Air program to get various local stations to run it. And that introduced me to the world of advertising on a professional level, where subsequent to that, I got a job in advertising, winding up as the television director at a small or medium-sized advertising agency in Chicago.
Yeah.
In the course of shooting television commercials, we shot in a little studio where the owner had hands of gold. He could make that camera stand on its head, but as a business person, he was, I felt, deficient. In fact, that's one reason we were shooting commercials there. So I bought a half interest in that studio. One of the problems with shooting commercials there was that all his equipment was 16 millimeter. And the big advertising agencies were going to California to shoot their commercials, because in California, the studios had 35 millimeter movie equipment.
Yeah.
So nothing would do but that I buy 35 millimeter movie equipment, which I did at horrible expense, even though it was beat up used equipment. And the agency still went to California. And one day I was complaining to somebody I barely knew about the nature of business, and he said, "Well, how do you make any money shooting films?" I said, "The only way to make money is to shoot features." And that planted really a nasty seed. So here I was trying to figure out how to make any money in the movie business shooting features. And I'm located in Chicago, which is certainly not a center of production. But I was watching a late-night movie, and some gangster movie or whatever, and the police pumped this gangster full of bullet holes, and he died peacefully with a little splotch on his shirt. And I said, wait a minute. And into my mind leaped that marvelous four-letter word, G-O-R-E. And I decided to try to make, which I had been doing with moderate success, the kind of motion picture the major film companies either would not make or could not make. And that was the genesis, really, of Blood Feast, which I'm told now that was the watershed of the entire splatter film industry.
Oh, definitely.
That's how it came about. And there again, when I shot Blood Feast, I'm not certain as to whether any theater would ever show it. And certainly not certain whether any theater goer would ever pay to look at it, because at that time, there were not just DVDs and Blu-ray. We had no video cassettes at that. It was you made success in the theaters or not at all, competing with everybody else who was making theatrical films. So I shot Blood Feast on this, I will call it a budget, and that's funny, too. There was no budget. And when the results started coming in, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. It just seemed odd to me that anybody would, because I lost heart as I was cutting it. But it goes to show how cloudy the crystal ball can be.
And that was mainly in sort of drive-in theaters and kind of grindhouses?
Drive-ins were our lifeblood. We had a number of other theaters. I developed almost I'll call it a fraternity of theaters that would play my product because they knew this. Look at it from the viewpoint of a business person. And I have always made a point of a movie business being a business and not an art form. And you don't try to show off what a genius you are. You try to get somebody to pay to look at what you've done. Yeah. Let's suppose you own a theater. I'm going back now a great number of years. In comes Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer or Paramount or Fox, and they say, here's our deal. The first 2 weeks we get 60%. The next 2 weeks after that we'll split with you 50-50, and then we'll see. And they guarantee that they're tied up for at least 2 weeks with that theater, with that product. In I come and I say, wait a minute, give me 35%, guarantee me 1 week only. And the theater owner will say to himself, just a second here, if I show this schlocky little film, I can make more money than if I show the major company product because I don't have to have a full theater. A percentage is what matters here.
Yeah.
And the logic of that arithmetic stood in my favor. And once again, the movie business is a very incestuous business. Look at it right now. On Sunday evening, and a movie that's opened on Friday, that's 2 days later, everybody knows whether your movie is going to be a success or a bomb.
Yeah.
There are no secrets there. Well, we opened Blood Feast in a little drive-in theater in a town called Peoria, Illinois, figuring if we die in Peoria, who will know?
Right.
Not only did we not die, this horrible little creature that I had created flourished. I admit to you, I couldn't believe the way that movie opened up. And that episode repeated itself over and over and over again. I struck a mother lode.
Yeah, no, definitely, and created a whole kind of genre for yourself, or certainly a great name for yourself in that genre. So you just said there, and I was going to bring it up, that obviously you see filmmaking and putting them out there as a business. But I do wonder, as I'm sure you've been asked before, did you have any influences, or were there films that you liked or admired growing up, or as an adult that you liked as entertainment or even creatively?
I admit to you, I was really outside the orbit. I had what I liked then and still do, cartoons, a rather primitive taste, I admit.
No,
I used
great.
to be a great fan of science fiction films until they switched almost entirely to computer-generated images, which has, again, in my opinion, an artificial look to them, an artificial feel to them. You get the notion that it's more textbook-ish, or it is less, the realism tends to disappear, and I don't have quite that fine edge I used to for that kind of movie.
Yeah.
But I didn't. There were no masters for me to follow. I was flying blind, and the effects we had are when they now call splatter effects. We just call them gory movies. We would buy department store mannequins and stuff them full of glop.
Yeah.
And said, look what's happened today. You can walk into any magic shop and get effects that I would have, would I have been thrilled to have something like that.
Yeah.
So we were paving new ground. There were no masters to follow.
No, indeed. And so on the show, to accompany this interview, we're covering the movie The Gore Gore Girls, which was your last film in the 70s before you would then return later on in the early 2000s. The movie plays like what they now call an Italian giallo in some respects, with the black-gloved killer and the gore and the detective on the trail, etc. Obviously, these were staples in pulp novels and pulp films as well. But were you aware of the films starting to come out of Italy? Were they any influence at all?
Yes, indeed they were, because what they had was a tinge of humor attached. It may have been inadvertent,
Right.
but it was there where it wasn't just tirelessly somber. And that's what, in fact, inspired me to add that element to the Gore Gore Girls, which had in it, I guess, once again, as a sort of a groundbreaking situation, the combination of outrageous gore and outrageous humor.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, the detectives' lines especially are sort of, almost every other one of them is like a funny little joke or a one-liner or a play on words.
That was the intention. I'm delighted you saw it that way.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. It's a lot of fun. So what do you remember then about making the Gore Gore Girls specifically?
Well, the Gore Gore Girls I shot in Chicago. I was still living there then. And it was not an easy shoot because unlike, for example, shooting in Canada where the cooperation is extraordinary. We were fighting for our lives. With every place we stopped to shoot, there would be a policeman. What are you doing here? What's the idea of that? And so we obviously we're not shooting in studios. I still don't shoot in studios. I shoot on location.
Yeah.
So that was a penalty, especially since at that time we were still shooting in 35 millimeter film with that gigantic Mitchell camera that I owned then.
Yeah.
The Gore Gore Girls was intended to be something of a parody of my own movies. And whether it was a success or not was the usual uncertainty in my mind as we went along. In terms of actually shooting it, one of the problems I had was that if you know the plot line of that movie, which, I'm using a euphemism to call it a plot line, the heavy was a woman.
Right.
And one of the problems that existed then, and it no longer does, thank goodness, was our stage blood. We had compounded our own stage blood. And the principal ingredient was kaopectate. We didn't tell the actresses that because they had to take it in their mouth sometimes. But one of the problems was that getting it out was the devil's own job.
Yeah.
And I had this actress who played that role, and I won't mention her by name because she may still be around
Right.
all these years later.
Yeah.
And she was something of a diva, which, again, I thought was funny to be in one of my movies with that attitude. But what the heck? She was a good actress.
Sure.
But we had to smear her up. And she was appearing in a stage play at night and shooting for us in the daytime. And that was, I thought, was a penalty for us anyway, because we never cared what time of day it was. Well, here we were, and we smeared her up, and she got it all over her face and couldn't get it off. In fact, sometimes people would say, what do you use to get that makeup, that gore effect off, that blood? Brillo? And she hated us to a point where she was making public statements about what rotten people we were, that we were defacing the talent. How she appeared in her stage show that night after having been glopped up the way we did it, I don't know, but I am pleased to tell you I lost touch with her.
Probably a lot of pale foundation makeup over the top of it, I would imagine.
Yes. Now, the fellow who played the male lead, the detective,
yes,
we called him the defective. He was a good actor, but he would not use his proper name. He made up a name for his screen credit, which I thought was not smart on his part.
Right.
Because whatever he might be remembered for in his acting career, this had to be not necessarily a highlight, but the most significant in terms of publicity.
Right.
Well, what the heck? And we had, as always, we had a good time shooting it.
Yes. Oh, excellent.
I felt really that would cap off, because what had happened was, as you pointed out a little earlier, John, I started off as the Gauleiter, the owner. I owned that category. Nobody was making those films except me. Nobody had the courage, I guess, to try to invade that territory.
Yeah.
But as word got around within the industry, others began to make the same kind of movie. And then, bam, in came the major film companies, and they had three elements I didn't have. First, they had budget.
Yeah.
Second, they had name stars, or semi-name stars, I guess you could say. But third, they had implicit distribution. And some of the doors that had been opened only to me suddenly were half open to me and half open to others. And then a quarter open to me and three-quarters open to others. And then I began struggling to get playing time against other competitors who had those three elements that I didn't have. And good business logic says you know when to get in and you know when to get out. Meanwhile, my other business, the advertising business, was, I won't say flourishing, but it was satisfactory. And I said, okay, once again, I had a good time. And I'm certainly not going to be known as Cecil B. DeMille, although I made these movies. So it's time, as the Disney jingle goes, now's the time to say goodbye for all the family. And I felt I was gone forever, once again showing how cloudy the crystal ball can be, because here I am back in it with both feet.
Yeah, indeed. In fact, you've answered one of my questions about what fueled the decision to quit filmmaking at that point. Obviously, you went back to marketing, advertising, but you've also become a lecturer and a prolific author of books on the subject and so on. So beyond the money-making aspect, what kind of excites you or interests you specifically about marketing and advertising? And can it get quite cynical work when you're thinking about the audience and just thinking of them in terms of sort of what they want to be fed?
Yeah, they're units. But you see, as I think you know, you're my Boswell here.
Right.
I have written 32 books on marketing.
Yes.
And I give speeches all over the world. And I'm regarded in the marketing world, I have some fame. In the world of movie making, I have notoriety, and those two words aren't necessarily synonymous. But what I love about movie making is I have fun. I enjoy it. The combination of what you might call creative and technical exists there as it does nowhere else. And until the Internet exposed me, the worlds did not collide. I'd be giving a speech on marketing, and somebody would come up and say, hey, you know, there's this fella who used to make these goofy movies who has the same name you do. I'd say, uh-oh. People would give me their movies to do the campaign, because it's my feeling, yet today, that some of the giants in the motion picture world don't have a clue of how to campaign a picture. And that's all to the benefit of the independent. Now, obviously, the gap between independent and major has shrunk to the point where it doesn't even exist anymore. And some of the big companies are picking up independent product and distributing it on their own. I've never had that good fortune, but I have had success competing against that, because even though I don't have name stars, I don't have automatic distribution, I don't have budget, I know how to campaign a picture. I say that with some ego. I didn't really mean it quite on that level. But I'm saying competitively, when I look at some of the campaigns that I see in the papers as the movies open on a Friday, I say, where did these marketing people come from?
Yeah, no, I can look at a poster or look at a trailer or something and think, well, that's terrible, that's horrible. Like, who made that? They get paid to do that? I could edit that, in no time and do a better job. But it is crazy, the Hollywood machine at the moment. It doesn't seem to be a particularly strong or sane business model, but okay.
No, it isn't. And you look at some of the trailers on TV on I call them the coming atrocities.
Sure.
They inspire you to not see a movie.
Yeah,
because
completely.
What they're not showing is entertainment. Movies are supposed to entertain. Whether it's a small segment or a huge segment of the populace, you must select a group whom you feel are the proper grist for your mill, and nail those people to the wall, because what they have to say is, I must look at that. Yeah, and I look at these things, oh, God, I don't want to, even on Netflix, I don't want to get that movie.
No, exactly. So, I suppose for you, it's you're saying you don't have stars and you don't have, necessarily things like that you can trade on, but you have your name. Your name has become the star or the marquee headline, right?
Isn't that the cream of the jest, John?
Yeah, but it's a good-looking name as well. The three names and the the HDL, like it's got a thing to it. It's got a good marketing thing to it, right? Don't you think?
Well, I will give credit to my progenitors for that. And I named myself. I have no idea. I would probably my first name would have been King.
Yeah.
And my last name would have been the third or fourth or something, so it sounds more regal.
Yeah, it sounds something. So try and sneak into Buckingham Palace.
It's really funny. My son Bob, who was, and that's odd too. His name is Robert Lewis. And it was fine until the web came out, and I was talking to him a few days ago, and he said, "Do you know how many Robert Lewises there are? Millions and millions on Google."
Yeah.
But there's just one Herschell Gordon Lewis.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. So you returned to film in 2002 with a follow-up to Blood Feast. What influenced that decision, and did the cult appreciation and ever-growing internet fan base we've been talking about play a part in that?
I was stunned. A fellow named Jackie Morgan he called me. I had no idea who he was. And over a period of years, I had calls saying, "You want to make a movie?" The answer is always yes. And my feeling, my internal organs regard movie making like malaria. You think you're over it, and it's lurking in your body somewhere. The need to make a movie.
Yeah.
But what Jackie Morgan had that nobody else seemed to have, he had a movie ready to go, and his movie was titled Blood Feast 2. Now, please understand, John, at that time and even now, I don't own my old movies. A very astute young fellow, and he was young then, in California named Jimmy Maslin bought up these old movies, and I don't know how he did it because the ownership on some I owned, some I owned half, some I owned a quarter. It was depending how we put the deal together. But Jimmy bought up these old movies, and he had them, and every now and then he would ask me to do this or do that, and in exchange, he pointed out that I still owned the music rights to all these because I wrote the music for so many of them.
Yeah.
So what Jimmy had referred this Jackie Morgan to me, and Jackie Morgan wanted to shoot this movie in what used to, until they had the floods in there, New Orleans. And I said, certainly, if you can put your deal together. Well, he put the deal together, and that was the first time in years anybody had put a deal together. So off I went to shoot Blood Feast 2. Yes, there were elements in there that had I been in total command, I would not have had. On the other hand, there were delights that if I were still in command, I wouldn't have had. For example, in ancient times, often I was both the director and the cameraman. And certainly at the end of a day's shooting, everybody there, whether they were on the cast or on the crew, would help pick up the cables and get out or whatever we did. On this movie, I was the director. I sat in the director's chair. I didn't even have to yell, roll sound. I had an assistant director, and I would say, roll sound. And he would yell, roll sound. And I said, how long has this been going on? So I enjoyed my position on that movie. I didn't really enjoy the plot, the way it was structured. But that wasn't mine to control. That pre-existed me.
Right.
But what happened then, obviously, was that the malaria flared up again, and so I made that movie. And I was a hired hand, I guess you'd say. That's the best way of putting it. But I did enjoy getting back into the business after all those years for Blood Feast 2.
And then you followed it up with the Uh-Oh Show, which I believe had been an idea that you'd wanted to make for ages, right?
Well, here again, the worlds suddenly collided. The producer or executive, well, of course, executive producer is a stupid term in our industry anyway, because you look at some of the credits and here are 72 executive producers. My description of executive producer is a schmuck with a checkbook.
Right.
But the fellow who put that together owned a direct response company in a town called Delray Beach, Florida. And I knew him only peripherally because I would give a speech for his group on marketing. And one day he said, "Hey, weren't you also in the movie business?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, let's make a movie together." I said, "Yeah, right." Well, the next thing I know, we're making a movie together. And the Uh-Oh Show was, I originally titled it Grim Fairy Tales with one M on Grim. Now, of course, there's a movie out on that score. But the reason I changed the title was that very reason. I was getting calls from the trade saying, "Is this a lift of the original Grimm Brothers stories?" I said, "No, it's about a television quiz show." And that's what prompted me to change the title to The Uh-Oh Show.
Yeah.
But now, there again, my feeling is, and it's, 3 or 4 years later, a terrible mistake was made in distribution. And I'm using the word terrible advisedly, because what they started to try to do was a distribution technique which I knew had happened. It worked once. It was a freak. Somebody brought out a movie called, what was it? Oh, I'll think of it in a moment.
Okay.
In which they used the World Wide Web as their marketing medium. Blair Witch Project.
That's it, yes.
Mm-hmm. And it was a success, but when they came back and tried to do it a second time, it died horribly, which it was logical because it was a freak. It was not really a way to distribute a movie. But this guy insisted on doing it that way, and the distribution was damaged. I just got back from Canada, as I think you know, and as far as I know, the Uh-Oh Show has had zero distribution in Canada because of the distribution deal he made on that. And as that happened, and I made a mistake there, because I agreed to get the script I wrote, yes. I directed that movie. But part of my agreement, and I guess it's in writing, was that I would not be involved in the distribution of that film, because this fella knew it all. And it, in my, again, the opinion, the distribution technique was massacred. And when I saw who the distributor was that was appointed for North America, I sent a 5-word email to everybody involved in that project. And my 5 words were, "Tell them to get lost."
Yeah.
But as the Bible says, wisdom crieth aloud in the street. I knew their reputation because it was the same company with whom I'd had battles over distributing Jackie Morgan's movie, Blood Feast 2, and I felt they were pretty good with Japanese anime, which was their specialty.
Yeah.
But in terms of broad distribution, and now that's changed where we are competing with every piece of film that comes out of anybody's either film camera or increasingly digital camera.
Yeah.
That they were just not competitive, and the proof of it, in my opinion, and I shouldn't bore your audience with it, is what they did with or did not do with distribution on the Uh-Oh Show.
Yeah. So now you're currently working on the film BloodMania, and what can you tell us about that and its production?
I am thrilled with BloodMania so far. First of all, I hadn't realized that in shooting in a place like Calgary, there is such a wealth of acting talent and technical talent and cooperative spirit. It's like the ancient times before people realized what a scam deal most movies are.
Yeah.
I would guess, the world's #1 fan of shooting movies in Calgary.
Yeah.
I don't know how what liberties I have to describe to you what is in BloodMania, because James Saito, whom I think you know,
yes,
who is the producer of that movie, is I think at the moment at least trying to maintain some quiescence on what is really there. But I can tell you, first of all, BloodMania is a departure from what anybody else has done, and that appeals to me. There are 4 episodes, each of which runs about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The 4 episodes are tied together by a narrator And I became the narrator, by the way.
Oh, great.
And although each one stands on its own, the tie together is that each one is of course, very bloody.
Yeah.
Now, of the 4 episodes, I wrote one, the first one, and I direct 2. The other 2 are directed by local people up there in Alberta who are chosen by Jim or whoever is doing that, because we are very much in trying to establish a feature film industry there. And I'm counting on that happening successfully. The effects in BloodMania are equivalent to any effects I have seen anywhere that don't demand computer-generated imagery,
right.
which, in my opinion, is artificial. I shot this digitally. Now, one of the problems that exists now that didn't exist in the early days is the availability of digital equipment, because what that has done has been to draw into our orbit anybody and everybody who has a camera.
Yeah.
You can't do that with a 35-millimeter movie camera. But everybody has a digital camera, everybody. And so competition, it has really opened up to you must show professionalism immediately, or you're just somebody else with a camera. It really is an odd Arabian bazaar that we have begun to establish there.
Yeah.
In the case of BloodMania, the acting talent I can describe in one word: superb. I have never worked with such accomplished actors and actresses who show up and they know their lines as they show up. I had very little to do with the casting of this movie. I've learned long ago the more I can remove myself from the original casting, the less possibility there will be that any kind of assumed personal relationship will have been the reason for some cast member to be on the set in the first place.
Right.
So I truly look forward to the completion of this movie. I also wrote the theme music for it, and we recorded that, and I think successfully too. But what else may I tell you that will be of any value short of synopsizing what's in it?
Well, do you have is there a timeline yet as to when we'll be able to see it or how it will be distributed?
My guess is, and I can only guess because that question only James Saito can answer.
Yeah.
My guess is that there will be some sort of a rough cut ready for internal screening probably by the end of November.
Okay.
And what they're talking about is releasing this film or excreting it in spring of 2015.
Nice.
And that again is my personal guess, but I'm not privy to inside information there. I did see the first splicing together of the first of the 4 episodes, which I directed, and instead of 20 minutes, it ran 38 minutes. So we have some trimming to do there.
Right.
But as you know about the movie business, it's a lot easier to cut it down than to try to expand it after the fact.
Oh, well, no, exactly. Yeah, you can always spot the padding, but you can't always spot the editing.
Exactly correct. You and I think alike, my friend.
I think so, definitely, because every time you say about computer-generated effects, I want to say, yes, I completely agree. I much prefer practical. And I am getting to speak to James this afternoon, so we'll see if James has any more information he's willing to share about that. But
very, very good. I'm thrilled to work with him, and I'm counting on it happening again.
Oh yeah, he's a great gentleman and a really big supporter of my show, which is crazy but wonderful. You need those people in your world. So has anything changed for you then? I mean, you mentioned a few things in terms of like cameraman, assistant directing, and so on. But what's the big change for you between '72 when you left the business and the 2000s when you returned in terms of filmmaking and or marketing?
The biggest change for me is the availability of personal media as opposed to mass media, which is a mixed blessing. It's a change, but not all change is good change. If I were dealing entirely with theaters, I have a technique I can use that on a business level makes sense to them. But if I'm trying to have somebody walk into a video store or go online and buy a title, I have to approach that individual from an individual point of view.
Yeah.
And not even knowing what the demographic is it's a different world.
Yes,
but that's the biggest change I can think of. Technically, it's a lot easier than it used to be. Oh, is it easier than it used to be?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in terms that anyone can kind of get something shown, it appears.
Also, too, instead of waiting for the next day to get the dailies back from the laboratory to see what mistakes you made and where there's a microphone in the picture or whatever, you look at it immediately,
yes,
and you know what you have. And we constantly, not just we, everybody in the business, will make a shot, look at it, and say, oh, gosh, let's do that and move that light over there and have him stand here, and this didn't come out the way we wanted it to. Right then and there. What a gigantic improvement that is over ancient times.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. And you can even use tablets or iPads and things as monitors and connect them.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
yes,
through Wi-Fi
indeed.
and all the rest of it. So, technologically, it's much smaller, much easier, much quicker, and all those things. So just lastly then, Herschell, will you continue? Do you have ideas for further films?
I certainly do, but what I need is somebody to implement them. Yes. Well, as you know the business.
Sure.
Everybody is ready to go at any time. As I said, if you're infected with malaria, it's in your bloodstream.
Right.
Somebody calls me this afternoon and says, let's get together and let's make a movie. I'll say, oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
I love the business, and I love to be in it, and in fact, I like conversations such as you and I are having.
Yes, me too.
So
Me too.
I know
pleasure.
it shows I'm brain damaged. I'm aware.
Oh, no, not at all. I've loved talking to you, Herschell. It's been a real pleasure. It's going to be great for our listeners to hear and your fans to hear. It's just been terrific. It's wonderful, and I hope we get to talk again after maybe BloodMania has come out, or I've reviewed a copy or something. We can go ahead and have another chat about it and see how you think it came out.
I look forward to that, my friend.
All right. Well, look, take care of yourself. Have a great time, and we hope this continues for a long time.
Okay. I'll talk to you again. I'm counting on it.
All right, Herschell. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, well, that was just fantastic. I mean, what a guy, just a great interviewee, and had so many great stories to tell, and I hope you all really enjoyed that. Another guy who has some fantastic stories to tell is his producer, James Saito, and a good friend of the show. He is with Diabolique Films. Diabolique, the movie magazine, is currently producing BloodMania and also plans to go on with Herschell, as you just heard in the interview, and you'll hear again, to produce further movies. So let's now have a conversation with great friend of the show and great man all round. It's Mr. James Saito. James, actually, let's have a chat. Let's go back to the beginning. How did you? I know you obviously from Twitter, where you did your zombie movie reviews, and also you put me in touch with Linnea Quigley and now Herschell Gordon Lewis. But how does your career in film or film appreciation start?
Well, film appreciation goes back to the time I was a boy, and I'm not going to tell you what year that was, John. It goes back a ways. I've always been a lover of cinema, which is why yours is my favorite podcast.
Well, thank you very much.
We seem to have that in common.
Yes.
And, I would like to thank you while I have the opportunity, too, for never being able to hear the name Donald Pleasance in the same way again. Every time I think of him now, it's Donald Pleasance.
Yes.
So it goes back a long way. And with horror films, I grew up watching whatever was available on our two channels at the time. Mostly Hammer and Universal. Well, back then it was Universal Films, later on Hammer Films in drive-in theaters. And that's how I was actually introduced to the work of Mr. Lewis. I watched a double feature one evening with the first being Frogs with Ray Milland, which was largely forgettable, and The Wizard of Gore. And The Wizard of Gore was a bit of an epiphany for me. I'd never seen, any kind of violence depicted quite so graphically on a screen. So I became a big fan of Herschell at that point, and as it turns out, about a year ago, I was contacted by a fellow who wanted to make a Herschell Gordon Lewis film of his own. And I got to know Herschell that way. We talked. I became his business representative, and invariably this idea of a film came up. Initially, it was going to be a feature, which I think we are going to end up making down the road here. But that deal kind of fell through, so we decided on an anthology, and here we are today.
So I had the pleasure to speak, obviously, to Herschell earlier today, and the listeners of the show have just heard that. And he indicated when we were talking about BloodMania, he wasn't sure how much he could say. I mean, he talked about the crew, obviously, how much he's loving the crew up there, and how much he has a desire to have more films made in Calgary and to kind of hopefully create some sort of filmmaking, group up there. But what can you tell us as the producer about BloodMania and your plans for it in the future?
Well, I can't tell you much more. I will say this, because I don't want to be like a lot of films these days, and I guess this could be considered an independent film. We're trying to keep it hush-hush so that the audience can enjoy it. Our teaser trailer, which I hope to premiere at the Diabolique International Film Festival in Indiana about a month from now, is going to be that, a teaser trailer. Very little from the film, but doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Yeah. We want to go back to old school marketing with this film. Even our actual movie posters, one will be after the 1960s Herschell style, basically two-color, the usual warnings, and I don't know how coarse I can get on your program here.
Oh, you can be as rude as you like, so say whatever you like.
Well, I'd like to have it, Herschell obviously won't allow it, but if it was up to me, I would say, you will scream, you may have convulsions, you may shit in your own pants. Nice. Use that old style, 60s, 50s style.
Right.
But we're doing one poster that way, and we're doing another one more modern. So and as far as the trailer goes, same thing. I can't stand red band trailers that show you the whole movie except the end credits.
Yeah, no, I can't either. No, I agree. And so how did you get in touch with Diabolique? I mean, obviously they were a magazine first, right?
Right. Well, I was the director of marketing for a horror convention.
Yeah.
And I got to know Greg Petaludis at Diabolique that way. And we became friends and chatted on the phone quite a bit, and they had an idea for a film division, but they weren't going to do it for a while. And things just kind of happened. Before you know it, we decided to have Diabolique Films. He wanted me as the vice president because of, you're probably not aware, I've spent about 30 years in marketing.
Right.
So that and my knowledge of horror kind of got me through the door. I like to say I've stumbled into the doorway of show business backwards. It's not something I'd ever planned or ever saw myself doing.
No.
And Diabolique is going through a period of expansion now. We've got the Diabolique store, the magazine, the film division.
Yeah.
We've got our webcast, and there's 2 more divisions coming. So it's a very exciting time for Diabolique, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. But you're asking about BloodMania, and Mr. Lewis just spent about 15 days in Calgary. We shot 2 segments of the anthology. The first one he wrote and directed, which is a highly sort of comedic, almost like a Warner Brothers Wile E. Coyote cartoon sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Very bloody, very gory, and I think... when I saw some of the scenes filmed and we were watching the dailies, I was laughing out loud. So, I mean, it's going to be a great gift to his fans. The second one is more of a tale of suburban horror, dread, regarding a family who finds something in their new home that they're not really particularly that's supposed to be there.
Right.
The screenplay was written by a young fellow who's quite popular for his animated videos. Justin Sane is his name.
Right.
You can find him on his YouTube channel. Very, very entertaining script. The third one we'll be filming is one which I wrote, and it's straight psychological horror. And of the 4 episodes, probably the goriest. and most disturbing.
Yeah.
And then we have a fourth one that is kind of an homage to 80s films, 80s splatter films. Lots of boobs, lots of blood, rock and roll, all the things you'd expect from an 80s sort of film.
Yeah. And I understand that Herschell is doing sort of a linking kind of device to it, sort of like the Crypt Keeper, but more of a voiceover type thing.
Yeah, kind of a splatter version of Rod Serling in Twilight Zone and Night Gallery.
Right. Yeah.
Mr. Lewis and I have an agreement wherein I can be producing Herschell Gordon Lewis projects in perpetuity. Perpetuity being, I guess, till 2064, when both of us will long be dust.
Right.
So while he was here, we shot a number of introductions for future projects. And I expect audiences can see a lot more from Herschell over the next 5 years.
Nice, that's fantastic. Oh, we're definitely looking forward to that, and he seemed like a great guy, and got a lot more in him, it seems.
Well, yes, and for a man of his years, I'll say, he probably had the most energy of any of us on the set.
Yeah, I was going to say, a man of any years. I mean, I don't know that I wake up with that kind of energy or wit, so...
No, it actually surprised me. It's amazing. He's full of enthusiasm. He's actually a fountain of wisdom, and I think I enjoyed that experience more than the actual filming itself. It was just getting to spend pretty much, from morning till night with Herschell and getting to hear his thoughts on life, his anecdotes, his wisdom. It was a rare treat, and for somebody who's been a fan of his for over 40 years, an honor. And to call him friend is something that's very important to me. And I hope that we're producing movies together for many years to come.
Well, we do here as well. I mean, your life to some extent parallels his with the marketing background and the advertising background, but then also the sort of fervent love of movies. Yes,
we joked about that. And I suppose if I'm going to have a mentor in this business, there'd be no greater one that I can think of. We both have kind of that outlaw sensibility, and we don't really... convention doesn't really mean a whole lot to Herschell, and it really means very little to me. Especially me coming into this basically unseasoned. There was another producer who was supposed to be doing the actual day-to-day producing duties, and there was a slight immigration problem. So I'm basically going through a baptism of fire, learning as I go. And luckily I've had some very good teachers to help me through this. But I feel I came out the other end okay, and without too many harsh lessons to have to learn. So, it's an exciting time, and and Mr. Lewis, if I was to say, I had a mentor in this business, I can't think of a greater one.
And in the future, it will be more movies, obviously with Herschell, but also with Diabolique. That's the plan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're shooting 5 films over the next 5 years in Calgary.
Nice.
And usually the next question is why Calgary, and I'll answer that one. Calgary can pretty much pass for anywhere. That's why Hell on Wheels and Fargo shoot here. Why Christopher Nolan chose to shoot Interstellar in Calgary.
Yeah.
We have good crews. We have great actors. We have, Mr. Lewis is fond of saying, filmmaking is a business. And in that regard, I mean, there's plenty of cash incentives to film here. So we get to take full advantage of that. And I'm a native Calgarian, so it's nice. I'd like to support the Calgary film industry. We are opening a major studio here in 2015.
Oh, terrific. No, I know.
Yeah.
I've heard some interviews with, I think it was Mark McKinney from Kids in the Hall, where he was talking about spreading out into other areas of Canada and making movies sort of away from Toronto and kind of spreading out into other places to find, interesting looks and interesting crews and interesting cast and things. And it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'd like to create a family here. I'd like to be able to call on people that have crewed films before with me.
Yeah.
And an ensemble of actors as well that I can call upon to say, hey, guys, we're ready. Let's go shoot,
Yeah. I mean, George Romero found the same thing, I believe, like filming in Canada, his last few films. He found a sort of second home there after Pittsburgh had kind of run dry in terms of financing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
it's a good place.
And that's the other thing about Calgary. I believe we have more millionaires per capita than any other place in North America. We're a big oil city, so obviously for a producer, it's a bit of a savvy business move to shoot here.
Yeah, all the actors, aspiring filmmakers, and aspiring crew members who listen to this show have just jumped on a plane and they're heading there now, I think. They're like, wait a minute, millionaires looking to invest in a city where it looks like anywhere and with a film studio coming next year? Well, yeah, we'll saddle up and be there, yeah.
Well, I think that actually may present a problem, like it does to some degree in Vancouver and Toronto, where there's so many productions happening at any given time that they're running out of crew.
Yeah.
So, I don't foresee that happening immediately, but I can foresee it happening in Calgary down the road. And there's even talk of a second independent film studio for independents only.
Right.
If your budget's under a certain level, then you can use the sound stages. So
yeah, of course.
That's a rumor I heard. I don't know how much validity there is to it,
but that would be that would be a good thing to give people, because that's the problem is you establish something. It expands very rapidly because obviously the industry is always looking for pockets of cheap places to film. It's why, Asia exploded and New Zealand exploded and now Eastern Europe is exploding and Canada has its moment. They're always looking for that vacuum to fill with cheap productions. So it would be nice if they had something that they kept where they said, no, this is just for independence. It would seem like the fairer thing to do, but it can be difficult with the overwhelming amount of money that floods into a place when suddenly someone gets smell of it,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, so it's and I think when it comes to the horror genre in particular, I don't think the major studios understand it anymore.
No, certainly not. No.
The independents are the ones who are putting out the greatest work right now, and it's kind of a. It would be nice to see a facility where people could actually, go and perhaps get a little bit of production value for their limited budget. So it would be an exciting thing.
Yeah, and we're glad to see Herschell back in the game, and must be exciting for you. First producer credit, first writer credit, all on the same film.
Yeah, well, it's exciting and it's daunting. One lays awake at night worried about failure. I mean, Mr. Lewis has a legacy already, and I really don't want to screw that up. And so it's very important, and it's for all of us on the set and everything else that we do our best work to not only to introduce him to a whole new generation of filmgoers.
Yeah. And I know he was talking to me about his sort of slight dissatisfaction both in the distribution but also the content he had to take on in the previous films he worked on. I mean, Blood Feast 2 and so on. When he came back into the industry, he found that, there was certain content he had to accept, and then there was, they didn't distribute it the way he was looking for. So how much is he involved, or how much are you learning from him in order to distribute this eventually the right way, or the way he wants it?
Well, the problem with that most independent filmmakers face is exactly that. How do you market a film in this new, and I hate to say it, digital paradigm? And between myself, Mr. Lewis, and Greg Petaludis, one of the owners at Diabolique magazine, is that we have 120 years of marketing experience. And all three of us are going to tackle this. We've already come up with a few unique ideas that we're going to try that don't cost a whole lot of money. And if they're successful, it'll be great. If it's not successful, what have we lost?
Yeah.
So somebody is going to come up with a new model for marketing film, and we look at it as why not us?
Right, of course.
We're willing to try all kinds of new things, and Mr. Lewis is a remarkable resource. He writes a column regularly still for a Florida newspaper. He writes for various nonprofit organizations. He's constantly giving webinars and seminars on marketing. So, I mean, he's an invaluable resource, and he will be 100% involved in the marketing of this film.
Okay, lovely. And were there any sort of stories from the set or interesting moments trying to get actors or crew together or so on that you can share with us, so don't give too much away of the plot? Or
well, we had I had to put an ad out for a dog that could pee on an actor's leg on cue.
Right.
And surprisingly, I got like 3 responses in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So we had a dog trainer, dog behavioralist come out.
Yeah.
And no matter how we tried, the dog was camera shy. So we had to use a few gimmicks here and there. But
right.
Apart from that, no, actually, the usual bloopers and that kind of thing. And those I'm saving for the special features on the deluxe Blu-ray,
of course,
which I'm going to be posting pictures on our website fairly soon. We're going to be taking little packets and filling them with the blood we use on set, and that will be included in every DVD and DVD. Just trying to give people some value for their hard-earned money. It's little gimmicks like this that I think kind of give people incentive.
Yeah.
I mean, the only people who really, in this digital age, that's all you can really do to sell anything hard media anymore is to, either do intensive behind-the-scenes footage, audio tracks, interviews, commentaries, that sort of thing. So we're getting plenty of that, and I think that Mr. Lewis's fans will be very pleased. What
you're proposing is sounds great for BloodMania, and consider me a first order once that goes on sale. I will definitely be investing in that.
Stream it, download it, buy the DVD, buy the Blu-ray.
Yes.
Do the whole work. So we'd be very happy.
Of course.
But we're already planning, a sequel.
Yeah.
We have 4 other features that we want to shoot. And I'm getting scripts for those already. It's surprising when you have a connection like I have with Mr. Bob Schultz and Ms. Signe Olnick at the Great American Pitch Fest.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many log lines and scripts that, come your way, and unsolicited scripts and that sort of thing. So my job with Diabolique essentially is to look those over and read them 2 ways. The first being as a fan, is this something I'd like to see? And the second being, well, is it within budget? So the feature films that we have in mind, the one that I would really like to do next is based upon the most controversial horror novel of all time, which has been called Unfilmable.
Yeah.
And when I hear the word unfilmable, I just take it as a challenge.
Of course.
So we shall see. Everybody's so worried about political correctness and boundaries these days, and this movie certainly just contains none of that whatsoever. So it's a risk, and we're, all of us will sit down at the executive level and say, well, will this work? I know Lucky McKee had some success with Jack Ketchum's The Woman.
Yes.
So, there's still an audience out there, but, we deal in a subgenre of a subgenre, basically.
Yeah.
So, ultimately, it has to be something that, will turn a profit, and whether or not this film will do that is yet to be determined, so... Well, I have no problem. I think that it'll be well produced. I think it'll tell the story the way the author intended. But whether or not audiences are prepared for it is quite another issue.
I mean, yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I see the way, certainly in my profession doing podcasting and things, I see the way that podcasts crop up to kind of dig back into movies from certain exploitation genres of the 60s, 70s and 80s just because they're hungry for something that isn't, you know, The Conjuring or whatever the latest Hollywood horror movie is that they put out. You know, they're hungry for something that's different. They're hungry for something that has characters in it that you're like, well, where the hell do they come from and what are they doing? You know, they're hungry for scenarios that are... I think the only thing that I've found lately that I get a little... kind of the thing that I get hesitant about as a horror movie lover and a film watcher is when you get those films where they're sort of shocking needlessly just for the point of being shocking. There's kind of no real story there, but they're like, well, we've just sat around and we've thought of the sickest stuff we can come up with and we're going to do that, and that'll be a movie, right?
You mean like a Serbian film?
Right, exactly, yeah. It's just no merit to me.
My personal view is I'm not in for gratuitous shock value. I will quote Herschell Gordon Lewis here. We are in the entertainment business.
Yes.
We shouldn't be making the movies. We can't just make a movie that we want to make. We want to make a movie that the fans will want to see.
Yeah. No, completely. And I think, I mean, there was a great line that John Cleese had years ago, and he was talking about, you know, swearing or comedy or whatever, but use shock sparingly. You know, if you have too many jump scares in a slasher before the main killing happens, once the main killing happens, you've lost any tension.
That's right.
If you put too much gratuity in there just for the sake of gratuity, in other words, it doesn't hang on any plot or character trait, you become inured to it very, very quickly because you're like, well, okay, well, I've seen it. Like, what now? You know. And I remember someone when Human Centipede first came out saying to me, "Oh, it's this movie where this guy sews this other person ass to mouth," and I went, "Okay, great, and then what?" And they went, no, but they sew the mask around. I went, yeah, no, I get it, but then what? Like, what does it do? Does it get up? Does it walk around? Does it become a monster? Is it, you know, what is it? Do people hunt it down with pitchfork? What's the story? Oh, no, but he sews a mask to mouth and they shit in their mouth. Well, okay, I get it, but then what? You know, it's always, it has to have a story for me, otherwise I'm, you know, I don't care.
Well, yeah, and I think at the end of the day, all one ever learned from that is you want to be, like, in the front position.
Oh, yeah, no, completely.
So, you know, there's a life lesson to be learned there. That's what it was.
I see, from Human Centipede. Right.
Yeah, that's what I came away from the movie with.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, it didn't go anywhere. It didn't have any reason for being. And it was very telling that the second one came out and the only place they could go was to be meta with it, because there was nothing else to do with it, you know. It was just silly. But
when I was asked, and they said, what do you want? What kind of movies do you want to make for Diabolique? When it came to Herschell, and I said, well, this is easy. Story first.
Yeah.
Secondly, we have to have what Mr. Lewis is known for, gore. Mm-hmm. Third, I'd like to see in an anthology a kind of a twistish ending. Very, very Twilight Zone Night Gallery.
Yeah, nice.
And we were inspired. I was inspired to make an anthology by rewatching old Amicus flicks.
Oh, yeah, I love those, yeah.
Yeah, you know, so I rewatched, Vault of Horror, Tales from the Crypt, House that Drip Blood, all that, and said, yeah, this is kind of what we'd like to shoot for. You have Herschell as instead of having a different kind of host every time, Burgess Meredith here, somebody else there, let's have Herschell as the recurring host and do this. So... And I think a lot of times, some of the best horror, I call it the Saturday Night Live syndrome. Some of the best horror can be told in a 20-minute short. And if you try to take that 20 minutes and expand it to 90, you've totally diluted it.
Yeah.
So, it's something that we felt kind of strongly about. And we said, yeah, let's do this. And that way we can tell more diverse stories. And,
sure.
The audience has a short attention span.
Well, nowadays, unfortunately, yes, it seems, yes.
Yeah. So, it just seemed like a natural fit. And thankfully, Mr. Lewis agreed. And but there is another script that he has as well that we might shoot as a feature.
Nice.
We're just trying to work out the details.
Well, we, for one, are definitely looking forward to anything he produces. It's always a good time. It's always, like he says, entertaining. It's always something you want to see. and the stuff that he's known for, the gore that he's known for. Yes, of course, it's gratuitous, but it's sort of lusciously done, like it's wonderfully like it's sort of you understand when you buy your ticket that's part of what you want, you know what I mean? So
and we're doing this film with practical effects. I would say 98% of the time.
Nice.
And the other 2% are just for practical reasons.
Right.
These days for a squib, they're dangerous for one thing.
Yeah.
The actors have to have a metal piece stuck under their clothing, and the squib goes off, and it's about $400 per squib. Whereas good CGI, you can do it for about $150 a shot.
Yeah.
So, there are a few things that are, that won't detract from the overall, but we have a very good special effects makeup artist, and we're doing everything practically that we possibly can. So.
Nice.
And again, I think that's what fans want.
Yeah, of course.
Nothing too slick, nothing. It's something that just works after the old school effect. So.
Well, it sounds great. And you never know with obviously Herschell Gordon Lewis's name attached to it, and with the people who kind of grew up loving his work now are actors and directors and whatever. You never know who might come out of the woodwork and say, "Oh, Herschel's working again. Let's get in on that." There might be people who there might be other names in the business who want to be involved. Who knows? Who come out? I know when Romero shows up and makes another movie, people want to work with him, or they want to do a voice piece here or an actor piece there or whatever. So.
Well, I did speak with George not too long ago, and kind of pitched him on a little idea I had in his continuing series, and I will revisit that with him once again. But you mentioned my zombie review site, and
yes.
I must say, John, I've been sorely lacking on it lately. What started out as a project of love, it becomes a little more tedious. I have to take breaks now, and of course, while I'm in production here, it's tough to even think about it.
Yeah.
But with every man, Herschell says any damn fool can point a camera. And a lot of the zombie films coming down the pipe these days, it's almost unbearable to me. So, and I'm running out of sarcastic things to say.
Yeah.
I actually am. I can't think of anything funny to say. I think the last really funny one I did was on the Triple X version of The Walking Dead, which just lends itself to
right, of course.
to a bad review. But yeah, it's tough because there's literally 5 to 10 a month coming out, and there's never any deviation in the plot line.
No.
And I would have thought by now that The Walking Dead would have taken the zombie film right out, because what can you do as an independent filmmaker that will be any better than The Walking Dead?
Right.
You're going to get some special effects better than Greg Nicotero? Doubtful.
Yeah, exactly.
Complex story, developing characters, no. So it still surprises me, but I guess because they're cheap and they're easy to film and you can pretty much get your neighbors to lurch around, I suppose we'll continue to see them for a while. But my problem with the zombie review site is that if I keep doing it at any kind of pace, I'll end up hating the genre that I love.
Yes.
So that's my stance there. But no, and I think that over the next 5 years, they say a film takes up 2 years of your life. So I'm pretty much out of that game now for at least the next 7 years. So. But
there's still a lot. It's a very extensive site, and I would still urge people to go see it and look at some of the previous reviews and things, because it really is a alphabetized and extensive site of. I have this great book that was published by what was it? It's edited by Alan Bryce, who's British. But it was The Dark Side, which is sort of the British Fangoria, and they released a book called just Zombies. And in the back, there was a glossary of sort of, at the time, because this was I think it was just as Shaun of the Dead came out, so it was this recent wave of indie zombie movies. But it basically listed, more or less, any of the classics that you could possibly imagine in the back of it, and it's quite an extensive glossary, and I used to love that. And your website is sort of the website equivalent of the back of that book, and everywhere I've always traveled, I've kept that book with me, because I'm like, okay, I've exhausted the zombie films that most people have seen. What should I watch now? And I go look in the back of the book, or I go look on your site, and I find some movies that I can then get stuck back into, and so that's what it's
I'm glad to hear that. That's why I thought it would be a valuable resource in the first place. Well, it's James and Steve's Zombie Movie Rating Guide, and it's available at I'm not even sure the web address. It's a blog spot thing. Just look up James and Steve's Zombie, and you'll find it on Google. It's
zombiemovieguide.blogspot.com.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. See, this is why you're the host and I'm the guest. You're prepared.
Well, I had your Twitter page up, sir, and it's right there on the Twitter page, so it was nice and easy. Yeah. But
very cunning. But I would like to sit down one day when I'm traveling through the States with you, and we have a mutual friend, Brad Gullickson.
Yes.
Who runs In the Mouth of Darkness. We've been, I think, like yourself, and he's been basically an internet friend.
Yeah.
For about 5 years. So, I'd love to sit down with you guys and discuss movies one day. That would be a treat for me.
He's just down the road in D.C. I mean, it's not far for me to get a coach, but or a bus or whatever. But it's, I've met Brad once. I met him the last day of the Philly Comic-Con in, I want to say 2011, maybe it was 2012. I met him once, and we've stayed in correspondence. But no, I've known him about the last 3 or 4 years as well, and he's a damn fine fella, and seemingly has way more time and enthusiasm and money and energy or whatever to put towards stuff than I do. But bless him for it.
Yeah, he's. When I was his age, I think I had that too. But life kind of takes it out of you. But no, it's. That would be a fun thing to do, and I'd love to be on your show again sometime. It's
definitely, James.
Again, it's the only thing in my phone under podcast is the After Movie Diner, and
wow, that's hugely
it's
flattering.
Always a pleasure to listen to, and especially as an insomniac, it's for me, it's a valuable resource in keeping up with film as well.
We run long specifically for the Insomniac set. That's what we do. That's the plan. But I'm glad it's keeping you awake and not sending you to sleep, though. Although obviously insomniacs do need to sleep, as I well know myself. But no, thank you ever so much, then. Thank you for sort of every step of your career where you've been able to kind of. Put us in front of someone or make it worth our while as well, and think of us. Thank you so much for doing that, because it's only benefited us, and anything that we can do for yourself or for Diabolique or for Herschell, it's yours. So thank you so much for doing that, and always thinking of us when it comes around.
Well, I very much appreciate that, and I appreciate what you do for us, and I hope we can talk again soon, John.
Definitely, James, and you have a good afternoon.
You too.
Take care, sir. Bye now.
You have 15 seconds before we show scenes from the most terrifying, horrifying motion picture of all time. If you have a heart condition, cover your eyes. If you are with a young and impressionable child, please leave this auditorium for the next 2 minutes. The Gore Gore Girls. A maniac is on the loose. A killer whose lust for blood threatens more than the lives of every pretty girl. Never in the history of motion pictures have there been scenes such as these. We caution parents that no one under 17 will be admitted. The Gore Gore Girls. Unquestionably, you'll be talking about it for years. Those who have seen the Gore Gore Girls agree it's the most brutal, the most outrageous, the bloodiest film ever produced. Starring Frank Kress, Amy Farrell, Penny Youngman. Special effects by the same perverted madmen who brought you Blood Feast, 2000 Maniacs, The Gruesome Twosome. Nothing has ever stripped your nerves as screamingly raw as the Gore Gore Girls in startling color. The Gore Gore Girls. The Gore Gore Girls.
All right, hello and welcome to yet another episode of the After Movie Diner. And this week it is our Summarize Herschell Gordon Lewis competition. And our panelists are Jamie Jenkins. She's all the way from Athens, Georgia, and has a degree in sultry tones from the Hot Thighs University of Pomona. Good evening, Jamie.
Good evening.
And Mo Porn, who, due to his love of 80s romps, disguised himself as a girl to sneak into the Hot Thighs University of Pomona, only to be revealed during a topless whipped cream pie fight in the cafeteria. Say hello, Mo.
Hello.
And how are you both?
I'm doing okay. I'm happy to be here. I love talking to you guys. You're two of my favorite people, so I'm really looking forward to it.
I am also two of my favorite people, so I'm really, really super excited to be here. Actually, I love it because I don't have to be like responsible or like worry about anything. Or I mean, I have like an IMDb page in front of me, and that's all I have to like look at. And I love it. I love being guests on other people's shows.
I have to say, since starting podcasting, being a guest is my favorite thing to do. The only thing I hate about being a guest is when the show in question gives you a bunch of homework you have to do.
Right.
Or makes you watch a movie that you really wish you'd never seen in a million years. But apart from that, I love being a guest on other people's shows, especially Drunk on VHS, because I can just kick back and make knob gags. In fact, half the time I don't even have to
really
have seen
most of the
movie.
show, yeah.
Mo lets me be dirty.
I absolutely encourage it.
Nice. Let us speed on. Yes, it is our Herschell Gordon Lewis special episode. And although we will be talking in general about his work, we have also chosen to cover specifically the movie The Gore Gore Girls. Or maybe it's just Gore Gore Girls. No, it's the Gore Gore Girls.
The
yes.
Gore Gore Girls.
Nice. And an apt title, I feel, considering it's a play on the word the Go-Go Girls.
I love the pun. It's such a clever little play on words.
Well, the whole script is riddled with puns. The whole script is pun-tastic.
Well, Henny Youngman.
Indeed. Henny Youngman, who would go on to appear in Goodfellas, and once got, when they set up when they set up a New York telephone company, did dial a joke service, he drew over 3 million calls in 1 month, apparently. So,
wow.
And he made not one "take my wife" joke, please, in this entire film.
I know, but...
Yeah, I know. Well, when he did that dial a joke service, every single one of them was "take my wife, please."
Yeah, exactly. or my best friend ran away with my wife, and let me tell you, I miss him. Or I've been married for 34 years and I'm still in love with the same woman. If my wife ever finds out, she'll kill me. Yeah. I was so ugly when I was born that the doctor slapped my mother.
Oh man, I love his shitty fucking one-liners.
I know, right? They're great. When I read about the evils of drinking, I gave up reading. You can't buy love, but you can pay heavily for it.
Yes, you can.
I'll tell you how to beat the gambling in Las Vegas. When you get off the airplane, walk right into the propeller.
See, that's good. That's good.
So yes, he's in this movie. But let's dial it back a bit. And Jamie, why don't you tell us when was the first time you became aware of Mr. HGL?
That would be when I saw 2000 Maniacs would be the first film of his that I ever watched. And that was, oh man, that's dialing it back. I was still living at home at the time, so we're talking over 20 years ago.
Oh, wow, okay. And what was your first feeling about Herschell Gordon Lewis's style?
Wet.
It's a mess. But it was really fun. I think at that point I hadn't really experienced anything quite like that. I hadn't had any experiences with John Waters films yet, and so, or anything along those lines where you get like really super low budget, over the top craziness. And I remember thinking, wow. I went on to then watch other stuff, so obviously I got something out of it.
Excellent. I just want to pause the podcast here just to tell everybody that while playing golf today, I hit 2 good balls. I stepped on a rake. So, Mo, I'm just going to sprinkle these throughout the show because I'm reading them off IMDb and I'm laughing in my brain. So, Mo, when did you first come across Herschell Gordon Lewis?
Actually, my familiarity with him actually almost follows his career exactly. I first heard I knew who Lewis H. Gordon was before I knew who Herschell Gordon Lewis was. And if anybody knows anything about HGL, they know that Lewis H. Gordon was his name that he did when he was doing the like his nudie cutie films and stuff like that. So the first thing I had ever seen of his was The Adventures of Lucky Pierre, which is actually like his second movie, and I had gotten really sort of obsessed with the concept of nudie cuties, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm a complete and total like voyeur, and like the idea of like peeping is I don't know, I don't want to say like sexually arousing or anything like that, but I mean like I love it, like the idea that like you could be walking by like somebody's window and like just even nonchalantly just turn your head and next thing you know you're staring at somebody having sex in their room. It's just a fascinating concept that something like that would even exist. So I really enjoyed those nudie cuties because that's essentially the plot line to every single one of them. Some poor schlub who never gets to touch the girls ever, just happens to like turn his head and hey, there's 2 people banging, So yeah, I saw Lucky Pierre. Then I saw a lot of his nudist movies. He did like Daughters of the Sun and like what's the other one called? Nature's Playmates. Stuff like that. And these are all Lewis H. Gordon films. So I didn't know who HGL was until I saw Blood Feast, which was the first of his like gore films. I'm like, oh, because I heard the name a bunch of times. I'd even been to this convention down in New Jersey called Chiller, and I had. This is when I started to get involved with the Something Weird people, and they were telling me all these stories about Herschell Gordon Lewis and his movies and stuff, and like I knew him as Lewis H. Gordon because those are the movies that my local video store had covered. But yeah, so by the time I got to like Gore Gore Girls, it really was one of the last movies of his I had seen just by weird chance, because I didn't actually see it until it came out on DVD.
Yeah. And I think for me, my 2 were definitely The Gruesome Twosome and Color Me Blood Red, because I love
Gruesome Twosome.
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying that they were the 2 movies that I have a friend, Ben Stoddart, who currently works for the BFI but used to work for Tartan, who were kind of a precursor to Arrow in the UK in terms of putting out exploitation films. And they put out kind of horror movies. They put out the first, I think, uncut pressing of like Black Christmas, the original one in the UK. But they also put out like a lot of Japanese action and anime and various other things. So they kind of did Asian action and then Western exploitation. And 2 of the discs that he had free as copies, he gave to me, and that was Color Me Blood Red and The Gruesome Twosome. So I must have seen those. I don't know when that was that he was working there, but within the last 10 years anyway. And so I saw those, and then I found Blood Feast. I think has been on YouTube for a long time, so I found that on there, and I've seen that on there. But most of the famous ones, most of the big ones, none of the really obscure ones. I can't say that I kind of delved into it with any kind of abandon, but when I come across one, or when I've seen one, I've always enjoyed it for what it is. But no, I'm in no way an authority or anything. I just enjoy what I've seen, basically, and I've seen probably a handful and more, maybe 7 or 8 movies.
And I should also mention too, like much like Jamie, my start with him also was back when I was still living with my parents, or at least my mom, I should say. And so we're looking, late 90s. So again, about 20 or so, like 15, 16 years ago, something like that.
But he's probably the closest. I mean, just because he's one of the first to do the excessive gore and so on.
Right.
Certainly in Technicolor, because obviously something like Night of the Living Dead is very gory, but it's all in black and white.
Right.
He's one of the first to do that big Technicolor gore, and it's probably kind of the closest we have to sort of a filmed version of the Grand Guignol Theatre from France.
Oh, nice.
Because they used to do stories about, serial killers and monsters and, guys decapitating or pulling out the eyes of or sawing the arms off or whatever of women predominantly. Sorry, Jamie. That's just what we do as guys when we're sexually frustrated. And his films to some extent date back to that lineage. Like there aren't many examples prior to this of humans being sort of fascinated with extreme or watching extreme violence apart from the Grand Guignol Theatre,
Well, it's before he started really doing he had done Blood Feast already, but eventually he starts doing movies like Scum of the Earth, where it's like they're called they're called roughies essentially,
right?
Where it's like there are certain rules for the films, and he follows those rules to a T, HGL, that is, like with the Nudie Cuties, it's exploration leads to sex always, so like if there's some guy just walking, and he doesn't have to be looking for anything in particular, he's just walking, he will always encounter people having sex every single time. With the Roughies, violence leads to sex, but then you get into his gore films, and it's violence leads to blood, which leads to meat, and more often than not, eyeballs being played with, and
eyeballs and viscera and
yeah, because I believe what the idea was is that they were like, well, people enjoy seeing what the girls have on under their clothes, but what if we took it one step farther and showed them what they have under their skin?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Scum of the Earth is his big roughie, because then that's around the time that him and David Friedman had a slight split, and they started doing their own thing. And David Friedman really loved roughies, so he or seemed to at least. So he went off and did like the Defilers, and meanwhile HGL went back to do fucking like moonshiner fucking movies and shit.
Right.
Yeah. Because HGL always just followed the money. Like wherever, like he didn't care what the project was. He's like, if that's going to make me money, I'm going to go do that.
Well, he comes out of advertising, so
absolutely, yeah. And
he even says that anyone who calls film art is full of shit. Basically, it's about money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did try and ask him about that because, yes, it's an interesting standpoint, isn't it, to just say, well, movies are just about the business, forget about the art. Unfortunately, us as movie fans, we can't really feel that way.
Well, and I don't feel that David Friedman felt that way either, because I think for him, movies were about the con, not necessarily about the art or the money. I mean, obviously the money is very helpful, but I think for him, I think he felt that the entire film industry was like this giant grift, and he was just like working over these poor marks the entire time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, you don't want to get too highfalutin and start calling Herschel's stuff, quote-unquote, art. But there is a certain quality to it, a certain style to it, and it's a complete naive style, and it's a complete, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, it's a kind of an incompetent style. But because he did so many, and because he was prolific, and because his movies gain a certain cachet, and because we've all seen them with hindsight, if you can do a style frequently enough, like a John Waters or like a Herschell Gordon Lewis or whatever, there becomes over time a certain charm, a certain appreciation of them that you can't help but be pleased by or applaud. Do you know what I mean by that?
Absolutely, because even if you look at his filmography, I mean, looking at Blood Feast, which, I mean, really, it's the first, like, it's really the first movie of its kind, you know, and so, like, you watch that, and it's, I mean, again, no offense to the film, it's really poorly done. It's not a great movie, you know, it's silly. You could tell that you could still tell that he was fresh on that like nudie cutie sort of vibe in his head, because there's a lot of that sort of thing with the setups, that is, and there are some sort of comedy bits in stuff like Blood Feast. But when you get towards the end of his first real run of films like 1972 and dealing with like Gore Gore Girls, like the style, I got to tell you, Gore Gore Girls, I don't know why I don't watch this movie more often, because it's so good. It's such like a well, I mean, for what it is, it's a well-made piece of shit, but it's so well produced, and the effects are brilliant and the kills are inventive, and like it just works on so many levels, that you just didn't see at the beginning of his career.
I just feel like he's taken what he was doing at the beginning of his career, and by the time he gets to Gore Gore Girls, he's
mastered it.
He's polished it as much as it can possibly be.
It's the most polished turd out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it is my favorite Herschell Gordon Lewis.
Mine is This Stuff Will Kill You, but Gore Gore Girls, after being reminded for watching it is definitely top 5 for me.
And interestingly, though, the only one that I own is Gruesome Twosome.
Huh. I own most of his movies. It just, as I was looking through his IMDb page, it dawned on me, like, I really own a very large percentage of his filmography.
Is that through Something Weird? Did they put out a lot of them?
Well, they own the rights to put out almost everything of his, and through them is where I've gotten most of mine, because frankly, the way I figure it is, I love Something Weird so much, and I'm at the point now where like I don't want to support any other company except them, so I do specifically buy all my stuff through them.
And I don't know whether it was Something Weird he was referring to or an earlier deal that he had, but he does say something in the interview about the fact that he really doesn't own the rights to any of these movies anymore.
Mike Rainey bought them all off of him, and rest in peace. But and so now Something Weird owns all the rights to his.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how Herschell feels about that, but that's he made the deal. Clearly, I'm just saying.
Well, he made the deals when his movies weren't worth shit,
right?
And now he's sort of having a resurgence, and it's probably dawning on him,
right? But he's gone back into production, and we've got hopefully, knock on wood, another kind of 5 years of certainly Herschell Gordon Lewis, name above the title movies. So let's move over to the Gore Gore Girls now. And Jamie, did you want to give us a synopsis of the film very quickly?
Sure. Well, what we have here is someone is knocking off strippers, and a journalist approaches an investigator, I guess he is, and so they sort of drag him in to attempt to find out what's going on.
He's not an investigator. He's a one-man punning machine.
Yeah.
A one-man camp punning machine.
He is. He's fantastic. I love him. They drag him into this investigation to try to see what's going on with these strippers. Meanwhile, you've got all these different you've got the guy who smashes fruit, and you've got the women's libbers who are going crazy. So you've got all these people around who could be possible.
So many red herrings.
So many. And they're bizarre ones, too. It's not just, shadowy, creepy guy. It's, they all have a weird thing, and so every character in this film is just out there, and so you get a lot of stripping. And a lot of dancing, and then you get a lot of gore because we see these women as they're getting knocked off, as they're attempting, and you get a lot of bungling cops. Yes. These cops are ridiculous.
I love that 80% of this movie is gore and awkward dancing.
Yeah. Well, I think I described it online. I said on Facebook, this movie is 2/3 stripping and 1/3 death and puns.
Right.
And it's a lot like that. The guy who crushes fruit, I love that at the end of the movie, our hero, Abraham Gentry is the character's name, played by the wonderfully flamboyant Frank Kress.
In his only film role.
Yeah, I know, and he's tremendous in it. I mean, he really is tremendous in it, traversing the Herschell Gordon Lewis landscape like a mustachioed Jufro dandy, which is quite a pleasure to watch.
It's so appealing.
Yeah.
There's something about his character that is incredibly appealing and charming, even though he can be just like he's so snide and
he's such an arsehole.
He's nasty, but at the same time, I love him. It's just like,
and he says but he says at the end about the guy who crushes fruit. Just to quickly finish that point, Jamie. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, sorry.
He says at the end, well, I knew it couldn't be him when it was so obviously him, or something along those lines. Like he was like, I cancelled him out as a possibility when it was so obvious he was a red herring. You know what I mean? Like, I love that at the end they couldn't even come up with a reason why it wasn't him. He just kind of says it in his exposition moment at the end. Anyway, Jamie, yeah, sorry, you were saying.
No, I was just saying that as mean as he is at times, and he's just slinging insults left and right, at the same time there's some kind of inherent charm to his character that he's the kind of person that you want to be around. And I don't know, he's fun to watch. And you've got this whole tension going on between him and the journalist, which is just he's so aloof at times, and he just sets her up as bait. He gets her drunk all the time, which is just hilarious, just because he wants her to get her out of the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he has that great line where he's like, "I want to get you back to my room," and she's like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Yeah, so I can feed you a large amount of sleeping pills and get you out of my hair for a couple of days."
And the bit where he goes up to the woman at the bar and he says, "Excuse me," and she goes, "I can't do that. You're inexcusable." Which I think is awesome. I just wanted to let you know, though, that on a recent seafood restaurant I went to, the catch of the day was hepatitis. Henny Youngman again, people. Henny Youngman. So, livening up this podcast since 1876.
Gentry has a great line early in the film where he goes up to one of the waitresses, one who he seems to have regular interactions with, and he goes I've got a tip for you, or I've got a gift for you, or something like that. And she goes, "Oh yeah," and he goes, "Yeah, hold out your head," and he puts the water bottle in her hand. He goes, "You seem to know what to do with this." Like. Like, he's such an asshole. I love it so much. Yeah. And like it's funny. Like, I didn't realize that the guy who wrote this is the only movie that he's ever wrote too.
Yeah.
And he plays the stoner, whichever guy that was.
And what I love is that although some of the people have really great names, you've got Susie Cream Puff, Lola Prize, Mazdoni Mobili, and Abraham Gentry. Some of the actors have wonderful names as well. You've got Frank Kress, that's a great name. Yeah. Hedda Lubin, that's a wonderful name. Russ Badger, my personal favorite, plays Lieutenant Anderson. Jackie Kroger, and then Nora Alexis, Frank Rice, Corley Bew. There's some great Lena Boosman. There's some wonderful names here. Luba Cheruchenko. I mean, come on now.
That sounds like an awesome sexual position.
Wait a minute. I cannot do what you want me to do right now. I'm stuck in the middle of a Luba Cheruchenko.
Oh, that shows great dexterity. Well, don't hurt your back.
Just whatever you do, do not take off the oven mitt.
And could you come in here for a minute? I need some adjusting. I want to transition into a Russ Badger.
Yeah, I don't know why they went with a rusty trombone. A Russ Badger would have been a much better thing. So would a Susie Cream Puff, though. So, yeah, it's got overtones, this movie, of a giallo to some extent. And Herschell was sort of well aware of what was slowly coming out of Italy with the kind of gore movies. I mean, he said one of the reasons why he basically decided to stop after this movie and go back into advertising was the idea that at this point in the early 70s, and this is still quite early, really, for a lot of the films, but he said at this point in the early 70s, enough people were doing what he was doing, only obviously with, you know, better director of photography and
higher budgets,
better actors, higher budgets and so on, that he really couldn't compete at that stage just making, you know, stalk and slash films.
Right.
I think he probably could have gone on a couple more years, but I mean, you know, he did get out while he was on relative top in terms of drive-in and grindhouse theatres and so on, which is where he would have his deals. Because he did deals directly with the theatres. I mean, that's how he distributed back then.
Right.
He was telling me it wasn't a case of...
You had to.
Right. It wasn't... yeah, he didn't go through some big company or anything. And in fact, he could kind of, in his own small way, outbid Hollywood studios, who would often rob theatres of a lot of their percentage by basically either going 50-50 or even in some cases giving the theatre a higher percentage of the ticket taking than Herschell would get himself. So. But did you see the overtones, Jamie, and the giallo? I mean, especially in kind of what the killer's wearing and so on.
Yeah, I mean, and you get frequent shots of hands, and no, those are my home movies. Yeah, you get frequent shots of hands, you know, during the kill. You never. I mean, of course, it's important that you don't see the killer because there's a mystery there. But you know, in Giallo,
in inverted commas,
in Giallo, you see, you know, typically gloved hands, but you know, you see hands a lot, and so
right.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, you put
I too saw that.
I too saw that. Yes.
Very easy for me to say that after the fact. Yeah, I saw that.
I too felt that, and yeah, I mean, there is.
Sorry, I was too busy watching the black go-go dancer dance awkwardly for an extended period of time, and
there is some staggeringly awkward dancing in this movie.
Man, like some weird hip gyrations, but she had big boobs, so they kind of flopped around, and it was perfect. It worked out nice.
But yeah, I mean, maybe I was a little mean when I said 2/3 of it is dancing. Maybe it does break into a third each, dancing, death, and puns, maybe. Because that's basically what the film is. I mean, Gentry walks around not really making any grand deductions, but one assumes just by the way he talks that he's possibly cleverer than he looks.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant the way they do it, because he sees something and he just kind of goes,
yeah.
you know, and then like, so like, you know, there's something going on in his head, but he doesn't have to explain anything until the end. And even if it doesn't make any fucking sense, we already know, you know, who the person is. I love it. I love the way this movie's written, specifically because it's puntastic. It's just so full of like snark and, you know, sarcastic remarks, and the final reveal at the end. You know, like the way he explains it is just sort of brilliant. And also really obviously written after the fact, but I love it. I love it.
It's kind of what Guy Ritchie did with the first of his recent Sherlock Holmes films. Basically, right. Robert Downey Jr. goes around being amusing and occasionally going, and looking at something, and then at the very end has an incredibly long spiel explaining how it was all done.
Right.
You don't think it was the Bible thing? You didn't buy into that?
No, I didn't buy into the... What I love about this is he has so much disrespect for almost everybody else. He leads the cops on a wild goose chase that it could possibly be... So in other words, he's willing to let girls continue to get murdered while he figures it out, while sending the cops off on some wild, it could be a religious killer goose chase when he knows that isn't the answer. But
Right.
instead of trying to get the cops on his side and working with them and possibly stopping it before more girls are killed, no, he's happy with more girls getting killed as long as he's the one to figure out the answer in the end.
Well, then it's more evidence for him.
Yeah. And can I ask, Jamie, I don't know biologically, but I would imagine just snipping off the end of a nipple doesn't immediately make a woman lactate. I might be wrong here, but I'm just checking.
No, if I would say no if there.
I know from experience that it actually does.
If there's no milk in that breast, you're not going to get. I mean, there has to be a reason for it. We don't just come equipped with
Right.
milk.
Yeah, that was,
it's not factory.
that was possibly the weirdest scene in the whole movie. That
Yeah,
when
because he had just finished, he had just finished frying her face in a.
No. This is before he fries the face.
Right, you're right.
He fries the face of the black girl. It's the white girl that he's killed with the iron.
Right.
The kind of bland-faced girl that he beats into
Bland face.
Well, no, because she has. what I mean is she has a sort of vacant look on her face.
Right.
Kind of a pale, kind of vacant look when he attacks her. I don't mean any disrespect to the poor woman. But no, he beats her face in with an iron and then reveals her breasts, and then with a knife, like you would.
Scissors.
Is it with scissors? Oh, okay, yeah, with scissors.
Flips the very tip, the very teeny tiny little tip off with scissors.
Yeah, and then milk immediately spurts out, and he has some champagne glasses waiting.
And he clinks them together. That's the best part. He fills both.
Completely bizarre. It's like, where did you come up with that?
Oh, it's just such a sign of pure psychotic genius. It's like, well, what are we going to do with this chick? We just burned her face off with an iron. Oh, I know. Let's snip off the tip of her nipples so that milk shoots out of them.
Yeah.
Fill up a couple of champagne glasses and then clink them.
And then not only that, but after he's killed the black woman in the vat of chips that are or fries that are frying on the stovetop there, he daintily stirs the broth that's left, like the blood and the eyes and everything else that's fallen out into the thing.
There's like
he just daintily stirs it up.
And this is after he's gotten the woman with the ass pounding.
Yeah. Which is so funny because
which he also seasoned.
I love that he seasons it.
Yeah.
Like, I had forgotten about that scene, and thank goodness I was alone in the house when it came on, because I laughed so hard. Because just tenderizing the butt is hilarious in and of itself. But when the killer brings out the two, it's like salt and pepper shakers and starts seasoning the butt, I'm like, oh, this is so good.
And what's odd is that it's only at that point in the movie when it turns to like a food-based killer. The first few kills has nothing to do with it.
Right.
Like the first kill, he smashes her face into a mirror and just like skins her face, doesn't he?
That first kill is so goddamn brutal.
Yeah, and then
visceral.
Yeah,
and then immediately it goes into the title with a like his little like jolly 60s music.
The score throughout is insane. I mean, it's like, were you watching this movie when you scored this film? Did you know what you were attaching this music to? It's hilarious.
Well, I know HGL tended to do his own music.
He did score this film.
Oh, so there you go. So that explains a lot. I mean, this is the same guy who brought us the massively impressive score of Dong Dong.
But no, he scored this film two ways. I mean, he scored it himself under the pseudonym of Sheldon Seymour, but he also used a lot of kind of brass band token marches, like he had some vinyl record kicking about his house, 101, brass band marches by the Royal Infantry Light Brigade, trombone men or something.
Actually, he just had one record. It was just 101 ways to make your movie sound ridiculous.
But I
think he recorded a marching band as they were practicing down the street. Right. Is what they did. They marched by his window and he stuck the tape recorder out.
It's like, I'm not going to bother buying a guy
goddamn record. I'm just going to record these guys down the road.
I'm going to go to a parade and rip off some music.
But what it does is it has the effect of turning everything in the film, even some of the death sequences, into kind of Python-esque, Benny Hill-esque, and then this is an obscure reference because everyone kind of knows Python and Benny Hill, but the Goodies-esque, which was a Python-era show with Bill Oddie, Tim Brooke-Taylor, and Graham Garden, where they kind of three wacky British guys get into japes and scrapes, and often it would have kind of brass band music, and this had that to a T. There's even the other bizarre scene in it, apart from the nipple snipping scene, which is really just what the hell's going on here. The other bizarre scene is where he's at the bar and he orders some cocktails, and then there is a sped up sequence of the barman making cocktails, which is some sped up brass band music. I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah, the movie goes from being really and I love that this movie. I think if you had to describe the movie in one word, I think bipolar is probably the word to use. I mean, it's so manic at moments and then so dark at others. Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about it is the kills are really, even with the effects, being slightly dated or whatever, the kill and also being gratuitous. I mean, there's one point where, in a glorious way, not in a negative way. I'm not a fan of negative gratuity, but in a nudge, nudge, wink, wink way, right down to when he does remove the eyes of that one killed woman. You can see the killer purposely tipping the head towards the camera in order to show that whatever they've done. But the kills are, if you're not used to HGL stuff, pretty sickening.
They're brutal. They're brutal.
Yeah, they're brutal. I mean, they're brutal, yes, but I mean, post that, the effects, although obviously limited, are pretty sickening because it is unflinching. The camera doesn't cut away. There's no safety for the audience. You're just stuck watching the evisceration of people's faces or asses, depending on what he chooses to do. And yet the rest of the movie is so comedic and ridiculous that you're right. The bipolarity of the film is just and that's what I meant when I said earlier. It's a style unto its very own, and I know where the style comes from. The style comes from HGL basically saying well, the gore's got to be really fucking gory, and the girls have got to be really fucking sexy. We've got to put as much of both in the movie because what we're selling this movie on is tits and gore, right? That's what we're selling.
But it takes that third step too, because you're. I mean, you're right and you're wrong. You're right in that the girls.
I'm never wrong. No, fuck you.
He's right, and that's definitely a very HGL personality style for him. The girls have to be super hot and willing to get naked. The kills need to be crazy and gory as shit, but the humor needs to be over the top as well.
Sure,
because that's like the trifecta. That's what he always did. He always did crazy kills, cute chicks, and fucking insane over the top humor.
But what I mean by is that by this point, once all those things are accepted, and while you might know or you might not know why those things are in there the way they are and to the degree that they are, like I was saying earlier, the style has been perfected to the point where you're I know why this is being done, but it's also kind of genius the way it's being done and the way it's been put together. And it does create something that, considering the absolute turgid arse that is called art these days and some of the absolute rancid shit that people go on and on and on about.
Why don't you tell us what you think about it?
This kind of becomes art in its own way. You know what I mean? If this was
absolutely
as much as if you want to compare it to something that is actually called art, is it Un Chien Andalou or Le Chien Andalou? I can't remember. But the Salvador Dali
Un Chien Andalou.
Right.
Yeah.
The Salvador Dali surrealist piece, right, which is always being brought up. That movie is basically
tits and gore and weird stuff going on, and yet that's art. And this, because it was made for a drive-in audience or a grindhouse audience, is not art. Well, I don't hold to that. To me, if you put it on film and if there's a style to it, and if there's like some actual talent to it, which this clearly has, I think it's got every right to be placed in that without a hint of pretension either. I'm not trying to elevate it to a point that it doesn't belong. I'm trying to say that it very clearly belongs to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I am, however, taking the totally pretentious route of saying it belongs. No, I agree 100%. I don't care what he says. I think his films are art. I love, the silliness of it, and I mean, and it's fine. Like, even the silliness of it is still art. It's great. I love it all around. The end.
So, Jamie, what were your favorite bits or your overview of the movie?
I love every one of the kills. They're so creative and so inventive, and something that you won't really see anywhere else. And I mean, where else have you seen a woman's ass pounded with a mallet and then seasoned, or a woman's nipples flipped off and then
Moe's
milk
cabin?
pouring out?
No.
Well,
Yeah.
sure. And
it was that weekend that John came to visit. Yeah.
It's just wild. It's no holds barred. And one of my favorite bits is at the very end. There's a nice head smashing by a car that I love that scene. It's just like fall out in the street and then, you get that there's a fantastic sound effect that goes along with this head being smashed by a car that just continues going. This car doesn't even stop. I just ran over someone's head, but I'm going to keep going.
And
it's very Toxic Avenger.
Doesn't he say that at the very end something along the lines of, but at least it was a good car or a new car or something?
Yeah. At least it was a new car, yes.
That's it, which I think is hilarious.
Or an expensive car. I think he says new. At least it was a new car.
It goes, she lost face 3 times. Once as a wrestler, once as a stripper, and then lastly between the wheels of the concrete. Which
even then he's got great jokes.
Yeah.
I love any scene with him where he's just being himself, and it's fantastic. I love the way that he and bless her, I cannot think of the name of the journalist, but I really like her character too, and I love the actress.
Nancy Weston was her character name, was it? And I think she's played by Amy Farrell.
I love the actress in this. I think she pulled this off beautifully, and I believe these two together. It was a lot of fun, and overall,
you know what else she was in? Airport 1975.
Nice.
Was she?
She was.
Oh God, I haven't seen that in forever, and I love airport movies, but shit. What was I going to say? Oh, and like I said earlier, this is my favorite of his films, so pretty much beginning to end, I love this whole thing. Never once do I get bored with it. Never once do I get tired of it. I don't, it's not like, oh God, more gore, oh God, more stripping. No, it's you want more. You want more of it all, and you get plenty of it all, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I agree. I enjoy this immensely, and I would strongly recommend it to anyone dipping their feet into the world of Herschell Gordon Lewis for the first time.
Anybody attempting their first Rust Badger.
Yes. anyone attempting to do a Rust Badger appreciation podcast should probably start with the Gore Gore Girls, as that's where it all began for Mr. Badger.
Then they could also end on the Gore Gore Girls. This is the only movie he was ever in.
But he is great as Lieutenant Anderson because he's when Abraham is like leading him a merry dance, telling him what he may or may not have got up to with one of the strippers. The Anderson completely and utterly forgets the fact that he's at a crime scene. He's like, yeah, tell me more. Yeah, like he's getting all excited by the idea. And then, of course, Abraham Gentry has to be all like, well, I just kind of told her that she would be better off without me or whatever, and I left. And he's like, oh, curses, Gentry. You're getting me all... What?
I left her reading her Bible.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah. He says you'd be better off with the Lord or something like that. Right. I remember that. Which reminds me that I should probably tell you that my wife and I were happy for 20 years. Then we met.
Yeah.
Which for me would have to be 26 years, but there we go. My dad was also the town drunk. Usually that's not so bad, but in New York City... So...
Brilliant.
And if you want to ever know how to drive a guy crazy, send him a telegram and on the top put page 2. Henny Youngman. And I can't help but feel that Henny Youngman may have had a hand in the script to this movie because
he had to do some kind of punch-ups.
Because some of the lines in the movie, I mean, I wish I could have taken some of them down and remembered them, but there are some hilarious lines in the film in the way he just goes about the place. And there's some that are... There's one point where he breaks the fourth wall, and I think he's doing like a Groucho reference. Because he almost does it in a ba-ba-da-ba-da kind of way. Like a sort of, I'm looking at the fourth wall and I'm doing a, like a Groucho reference. Like we could go outside and sell us like men, or we could stay inside and sell us like women. That kind of thing. And that kind of makes it a bit genius as well. Like, I love the fact that there are no, the only hard and fast rules is there must be tits, there must be death, and there must be laughs. Apart from outside of that, we don't need to worry. You know what I mean? And also, if you want to know like how easy it is to take the formula of tits, gore, and laughs and like ruin it, watch any horror movie of the last 10 years, and you can see how easy it is to fuck it up. So the fact that Herschell Gordon Lewis was able to do it in the 70s. With such aplomb is also high praise to him indeed. The Friday the 13th remake. Sorry. Jamie, any final thoughts?
No, I would encourage people who...
Oh, you're incorrigible.
I would encourage people who are not familiar with his work to at least check it out. I will be the first one to say everyone's not going to like it.
Absolutely.
You're going to hear people complain. You're going to hear the word gratuitous. You're going to hear the word boring even from some people. But and I fully expect that. But I don't think you really can say any of those things if you haven't experienced it. So experience it. And I hate to be the guy, but do you feel like, because obviously the other thing that could be thrown HCL's way is a certain misogyny. And I have to ask you, because people at home might be wondering, how do you, as a horror fan or a movie fan, Jamie, get past that? Or does it just not bother you? Just don't care? You just accept it as part of it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me in the least, I think. And this particular film has huge segments with angry women's libbers,
right.
And I am a feminist, but I'm not that kind of feminist. I'm a feminazi. I don't hate strippers. I think the best part of...
I don't hate strippers.
No, I don't. Not at all. I love strippers. I think that the main point of feminism for me is choice. Is that you get to do with your life what you want to do with it, and no one has the right to tell you not to.
Right.
So these women who are storming on stage and beating up strippers and have all these signs, like, what does it say? Like, no more tits. Or I don't even. Their signs are hilarious
down
too.
With this sort of thing.
And
Mo got that reference. I like that.
Those people are just as oppressive, as anyone else, and so. I actually have no problem with the content of this film whatsoever. I think it's completely tongue-in-cheek. It's completely hilarious. And if you don't have a sense of humor, that's your problem, not mine.
Careful now.
Well said, Jamie. Well said. I couldn't agree with you more, but then I am a misogynist. So, no. I'm a card-carrying misogynist. Hello and welcome
I'm a member
to
of the
John's Sexist World of Movies.
the He-Man Woman Caters Club.
Yeah. I want to see women eviscerated. And tits. But yes.
Well, and if anyone has ever heard me on Mo's show before, then none of this is any bit of a surprise.
No.
Because the shit that we talk about on Mo's show.
Hells yeah.
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 Yeah. I got no problem. I've got no problem.
I've had to mute my mic and finish off a couple of times.
Aw, why did you mute it? You cheated me out of the best part.
I'll send you the files
Because he
later.
doesn't like to edit, Jamie.
Yeah, it's true. It's just I don't like
It's
that.
really, he just wants one clean take. He doesn't want...
I don't want anything muddied up, you know?
he doesn't want to... Plus,
That's
also,
okay.
when Mo orgasms, he barks like a dog.
That's actually true.
Yeah.
Anytime I go quiet, you pretty much know what I'm doing.
She goes quiet, but you can hear...
Yeah, you see the slick noise. Yeah.
Ah, dear. My grandmother is over 80 and still doesn't need glasses. Drinks right out of the bottle. So,
God bless you.
yeah, God bless Henny Youngman, who's given me no end of laughter tonight. Much like my wonderful guests, the splendid Jamie Jenkins and the awesome Mo Porn. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today on the After Movie Diner. It's been a pleasure discussing Herschell Gordon Lewis. Did you want to pick 2 or 3 of his other movies just to maybe suggest a little prize pack to the listeners to, if they want to discover more about him, the sort of 3 movies you would suggest, including this one?
Yes.
Before we go, Mo,
yeah, I'll start.
yours.
I'll start. Okay, I would definitely suggest and watch them in this order, because then you can watch the evolution of Herschell Gordon Lewis. Watch Moonshine Mountain. No, don't watch Moonshine Mountain.
Don't. That's a lie.
No.
He's wrong.
Abort!
Watch Scum of the Earth, because that's probably his best roughie, and one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Watch where is it? She Devils on Wheels, because it's an amazing woman gang film. And watch This Stuff Will Kill You, because I was going to say Moonshine Mountain, but This Stuff Will Kill You is a better country bumpkin moonshiner movie.
Nice. And
Yeah.
Jamie?
Well, I'm going to say Gruesome Twosome, which I also thoroughly enjoy. I would say 2000 Maniacs, because that one's more well known. I mean, people
That's his best gore. That's his best of the Blood trilogy.
I think so. And if people know him at all, then they likely know that film, but a lot of them probably haven't seen it. So I would say see it. And that one even is so well known that it had sort of a, I don't know, was that a remake? 2001 Maniacs? Was that a remake?
It's
what the hell is that?
Yeah, it's a sequel.
And it has, who does it have in it?
It has
Robert Englund is in it.
Robert Englund. I was going to say Freddy Krueger.
But and doesn't Scott Spiegel have something to do with that? Did his company produce it, or did he direct it, or something like that?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I've only seen that one once.
That's the only way to see that one.
And then I would actually say check out Blood Feast to round it out, because it's not good. I mean, it's not well made, but round out the catalog.
Really what you should do is just go to his IMDb page, start at the film Something Weird, and just go up.
Right.
I mean, you can go down after that too, but really I would say the only movie of his you probably don't want to watch is Jimmy the Wonder Boy. I mean, because he did have that weird love affair with children's film, which just is so weird. But Jimmy the Wonder Boy is really the only one that ever came out of that. And the rest of them are all great. You just don't want to watch Jimmy the Wonder Boy, trust me.
No, you don't. And on that note, I just want to say I have terrible luck. Last week, my chauffeur ran off without my wife. So I want to say that, and I want to say another big hearty thank you to both Jamie and Mo for being on the After Movie Diner. You are all welcome back at any time, and we should do this again, but thank you ever so much. Mo?
Yeah.
Tell the people where you can be found, sir. Pimp your shit.
Oh, I was going. We're going to do that. Okay.
You don't have to do it, Jamie.
No, we'll do
tell the people.
You can find me on Twitter sometimes. I'm at Drunk on VHS, or a better option, go to Facebook and search No Budget Nightmares, and join the community. We talk about low budget movies all the time. It's fun. And I'm on Drunk on VHS every Wednesday at 9 o'clock on the Second Unit Broadcast Network, and also immediately following it, well, not immediately, but following it at some point later in that evening, I do a wrestling show called Wrastlin'. And that's me.
And Jamie, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at /Maven1974. Same thing for Facebook. And you can also find me on the Second Unit Broadcast Network. On Wednesday nights, I do a show at 8 o'clock with Matt called Direct to Video Connoisseur. Wednesday is a big night for Second Unit.
Yeah, I was going to say, we are the Wednesday night lineup.
We are the Wednesday night lineup for Second Unit. We are. And you can also find me on Second Unit Tuesday nights at 11 doing the Insomniacs playlist. And John is my fabulous producer. He does an amazing job. And other than that, there's other stuff out there, but there's a lot of it.
Jamie is on 10,000 shows.
It's mostly pictures of her breasts.
Yes.
I get bored myself talking about all that other stuff. So it's just
there are an inordinate amount of pictures of Jamie's breasts out there.
Me.
So.
I know I've personally posted several pictures of her vagina. So.
Yes, or don't look her up and ask her. Ask her if you can look up her. That's what you want to do.
And chances are I'll say yeah.
And answer came there, yay. So, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for being on the After Movie Diner. It was a sheer pleasure and a delight. And a pants-soiling, exciting time for me. And I'll be back next week covering a film. Until then, keep it handy, ladies and gentlemen. Good night. Herschell Gordon Lewis, he knows just how to do it. He shows you ladies in the buff, and when you've almost had enough, he just says, screw it. And he cuts their bloody limbs off, oh yeah. Cuts them right off, oh bloody hell. HGL, the funny story he must tell. But be warned, the gore will off run free. Some of the images will be hard to unsee, and he says, oh well. And then he peels their bloody face off, oh yeah. Peels their face right off. He pulverizes buttocks, cuts off the ends of breasts, pulls out an eye or two. You won't want dinner once this is through. But he does it all with such manic glee, and even throws in a pun or 10 for free. Oh yes. Technicolored blood. He started off with cinematic craze and continues right into modern days. He doesn't judge, oh no, he just pulls their bloody guts out, oh yeah. Pulling the guts right out, oh yeah. There's guts everywhere, oh yeah. Well, Herschell Gordon Lewis films are not for the faint heart, so if you've got a squeamish stomach, then I really wouldn't start. But if you'd like to see some naked tits and fancy yourself a laugh, then by all fair indicators I can tell, you need to watch yourself some HGL. Well, it doesn't matter the budget, just get yourself some HGL. Life will be swell when you get yourself some HGL. I can tell you, when you get yourself some HGL, oh yeah. Well, you want to do it, get yourself some Herschell Gordon Lewis, oh yeah. Life will be swell if you get yourself some HGL. Get yourself some HGL, oh yeah. Like the show? Well, you can find our complete podcast archive over at amdpodcast.blogspot.com or aftermoviediner.com. You can send us an email at aftermoviediner@gmail.com, tweet us at aftermoviediner, or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/aftermoviediner. Or why not be a part of the show and leave us a voicemail over at speakpipe.com/aftermoviediner. You can also support the show a number of ways by spreading the word to family, friends and co-workers, by writing us a review over at iTunes or TalkShoe, by purchasing some excellent Diner merchandise over at cafepress.com/aftermoviediner, by donating on our website, by advertising with our website, or maybe you're a regular Amazon user. If so, then before you make a purchase, go to amdpodcast.blogspot.com, aftermoviediner.blogspot.com, or aftermoviediner.com and click through the Amazon banner ads. It costs you nothing extra, but they throw us a few coins for the trouble. Or, like the movies we cover, then buy them over at our personal Amazon store, also on amdpodcast.blogspot.com. Really, thanks everybody for everything you continue to do, and please keep listening.
There are men, and then there are second unit podcast men. The podcast you've just been listening to is part of the Second Unit Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at 2upn.blogspot.com or on Facebook under the Second Unit Podcast Network. Our fantastic list of shows include Drunk on VHS, We Came from the Basement, No Budget Nightmares, The After Movie Diner, Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid, and Bloodbaths and Boomsticks. Take one podcast into the shower. Don't be a blithering idiot, Alan. We can give you the multiple podcast cleansing system all in one place that your hair deserves. Our programming is available across all platforms, from iTunes to Podomatic, TalkShoe to Stitcher, so you have absolutely no excuse. Listen today, and a free naked person of your choice will be shipped from Thailand to your door in a matter of weeks. The Second Unit Podcast Network, bringing you the action and leaving the boring stuff to the other guys. Bloody hell. Who does a girl have to blow around here to get a decent beverage?